Right into our invocation and pledge. If
Yes, sir. If everyone could stand for a moment of silence, and then I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Let us pledge, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Craig. Okay, first up on presentations, recognitions, and award, Virginia Department of Transportation. Mr. David Clark.
Good evening. Hope you can all hear me better than last time. On my laptop, trying to scream at it and be heard by everybody. It's very awkward times we're having now, I guess. But in fact, we're all still under a lot of different kind of restrictions in our job. We were just talking earlier about we can't have two people in a vehicle, just on one per vehicle. We're hearing they might be able to work on that. Our crews have been split, so they're not in big, larger groups. We've staggered shifts. We've done a lot of things to try to get around a lot of this stuff. But unfortunately, the weather has not given us any breaks. And the last month or so has been mostly doing a lot of that cleanup from storms. Drainage complaints that people never had before are showing up now. So we're working on basically a lot of that stuff. So that's pretty much your maintenance update. We've been trying to do some paving where we can, patching. I don't think the plant mix schedule has not started yet here in Montgomery County. It may be a while before it does. We've actually had to put together some crews, Montgomery crews, Pulaski crews, and Giles crews to deal with the closure of 460 in Giles County, that stuff around. I think I told you last time. I didn't bring the plant mix schedule. I do know that Red Hawk and Smith Creek is going to be done this year. As far as secondary road, there'll also be a service treatment on the slurry schedule as well. I'll try to get that to you well before next meeting. There's going to be a bridge replacement project. We talked about this before on North Fork Road, Route 603. And that should start in July, probably. End of June, they may go ahead and start doing stuff. Probably close that road with detour around Reesdale and Flatwoods. And we've done a lot of work on Reesdale and Flatwoods to make that a little bit better of a detour for people who use North Fork Road. Looking at just estimating the contractor schedule, maybe mid to end of July. And they're supposed to have it open by contract by November. Also, working on a revenue sharing project that will hard surface Mount Pleasant Road. The contract, I don't know the finish date on that. It's this fall, though, so they should be starting that if they haven't already. And we are finalizing a package to advertise Yellow Sulphur Road for bids in the fall, and they probably would get a whole lot of work done in the summer. I mean, in the winter, but next spring and next construction season. This one will be the last project on Yellow Sulphur Road. So Yellow Sulphur Road will be paved all the way through. Spoke to Mr. King a little bit earlier about the through truck restriction on Meadow Creek Road, and that's been turned in. They just have to do a study, and there'll probably have to be a public hearing, and I'll work with the county to schedule a public hearing when it's time, because I mean they may suggest just one of those advisory signs like we have, or they may do a full lawful, absolutely no through truck restriction. If they go that way, there will have to be a public hearing. That's what I did on updates. I told you about the secondary construction. The primary construction is all going to to schedule. The bridges over Route 8 at exit 114 on schedule. The New River Bridge is not back on schedule. Those are the only two in Montgomery County. We've got a couple other bridges in Pulaski County we're working on that on schedule. So, that's all our updates. Basically, we've been fighting the weather and the flooding. So I'll be glad to take any questions board members might have.
Okay, we'll go around. Supervisor DeMotts, do you have any questions?
I don't. Thanks for being here.
All right. Supervisor Shepherd?
Yeah. I was just curious, actually. I know they've been doing a lot of culvert work and small bridge work on Nars Run.
Yes.
Is that finished, and is there any more to do in the upcoming months, year?
I'll have to see. There's a lot of bridges on North Run. I don't know how many of them they were going to do. I'll see where they are on that schedule, that bridge crew. That used to be on the 6-year plan a long time ago, and there were just so many bridges
Yeah.
to upgrade on that.
Well, they've done a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
they've had it closed a lot this past spring.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to say, I hope the weather cooperates and this virus cooperates so you can get your crews back together, because I just know you're going to start cutting brush soon.
Yes. I've had a list. I don't know if they've been cutting here recently. I left my list at the office.
Thank you.
But apparently it wasn't up in the McCoy area.
That's all I have.
Supervisor Blevins?
No questions. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you.
Supervisor King?
I got a big list.
I didn't talk to him. Appreciate it. We chatted a little bit before.
Supervisor Biggs?
No questions. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Bond?
Thanks for paving. In my district, Harding Road near the cheese factory, there used to be some really big holes in the middle of the road that people would have to avoid, and now it's just fabulous. Also, I noticed this weekend, Gordon Road and Ray Ridge Road Drive, you might have done it in the last couple of years, but it looks beautiful. Thank you. There's a 25-mile-an-hour sign that's been knocked over on Woodland Hills Drive at Nellie's Cave. So that might be something that you guys want to, I don't know how it was knocked off, but, you know, stranger things have happened, I'm sure. And then Woodland Hills Drive, I can't imagine any 18-wheelers could get through that road with all the trees and all that kind of stuff. So you've got a lot of work to do,
Yeah.
cutting brush all over the place, I expect. So, but thank you for everything you
Everything's
do.
growing a lot right now.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, David, I did notice that I was asked by our FedEx driver. She wanted to know if the road was blocked on Mount Pleasant, and I told her that I wasn't sure if they had closed it, but I noticed that when I was coming out that they did put up the signs, but they put up the detour in place signs right at the very end of Mount Pleasant, and you got to kind of stick your nose out a little bit. Not into Allegheny Springs Road, but kind of close. And I don't know if that they were positioned there for that reason, if it's good for most vehicles, or if maybe somebody needs to just take a look at it, maybe bring them back.
That's what you're saying, yeah.
Because we got that sharp curve
Right.
that's right there too, so you want to have good sight distance, especially in that direction. But somebody may want to check that. But yeah, and I appreciate all the work that you all have done in the flooding and then the subsequent heavy rains, which probably washed out a lot of the places you had just repaired from the flooding. And then add to that all the trees that were coming down blocking. I know you all have been very busy, and we certainly do appreciate it. Appreciate all you and your employees do.
Well, thank you very much. I'll
And
pass
thank
that
you
on.
very much for coming in tonight. We appreciate that.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, our very next item is public address. And I have the sign-up sheet here,
Wow, it's going to be a long
and
night.
it looks blank. But if we have missed anyone, if anybody wants to speak at public address, they may come forward now. Seeing no one come forward, we're going to close the public address. All right, brings us to addendum.
We do have one addendum this evening, Mr. Chair, and that is a resolution of support for projects and use of bond financing by the New River Valley Regional Water Authority. If the board is in agreement with that, we have tentatively added it as item B under new business if the board approves.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
We're just voting to add it to new business right now, right?
That's correct.
Oh, are we? Okay, I
Yes.
thought we were voting on it. We are voting on it to add it to new business.
Right. Yes, sir.
Then we'll
Voting
vote.
that- voting down.
Madam Secretary, I think I got it straight now.
Ms. Blevins?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Bowman?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Guzekowski?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay, moving on to items of consent. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? No discussion? Madam Secretary, call a roll.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Bowman?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Blevins?
Aye.
Chair Guzekowski?
Aye.
7 ayes.
All right, now we're in new business. First item, I guess we'll take is the budget appropriation
Thank you,
fiscal year
Mr. Chair.
2020, 2021.
Mr. Chair, thank you. This is the resolution that appropriates the funding for the fiscal year 2021 budget. This resolution appropriates only those funds included in the approved budget, which the board adopted previously. And as you are well aware, we have several caveats in this appropriation due to the ongoing concerns of the pandemic and the effect that may have on our budget as we move into the new fiscal year. So what we're asking this evening is that this appropriation be approved to allow us to move forward into fiscal 2021 with the holdbacks, if you will, that are outlined in the appropriation agreement.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So
Motion.
moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Madam Secretary, if you call the roll.
Ms. Bowman?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Blevins?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Guzekowski?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Next item is New River Valley Regional Water Authority bond financing.
So moved.
Second.
There we go. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Blevins?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Bowman?
Aye.
Chair Guzekowski?
Aye.
7 ayes.
All right, as we continue the lightning round, we have reports, our county attorney.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to slow the lightning round down a little bit. I wanted to briefly just let the board know that the Planning Commission is going to be resuming the land use process. They're going to be meeting on June 17th, the first time they've met in a while. Oak Forest Mobile Home Park is doing a minor expansion. They're asking the county to rezone almost 7 acres to allow 23 new mobile home homes there. And so that the area that they're looking to expand is an urban expansion area, and it's going to be before the Planning Commission on June 17th, and it'll be before this board at your next meeting on June 22nd. So I just wanted to let you know that we're resuming that land use process, and it'll be coming towards you at the next meeting.
Do you know if that's the only thing they're considering that night?
They, on June 17th, the Planning Commission will also be looking at 2 minor zoning amendments that have not been set for the board's public hearing yet. So that'll probably be, assuming there's no big changes, it'll probably be before you in July, would be my guess. But those are minor things.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, County Administrator.
Mr. Chair, I've got a few items this evening. I'm going to slow the round down a little bit more. First off, I want to give a few shout outs. I want to, I'm not used to everybody being behind me. I want to thank Carol. Angie was with us earlier at the PSA meeting, Mark Magruder, all those folks that were involved in the development of the fiscal year 2021 budget. Supervisor Blevins, I think I've said to you a couple of times, this isn't normally how we do a budget. This year has been unlike any in the 30 years I've been in local government. It's just a real challenge, but we appreciate all the support, the understanding. I have every confidence that we'll be back in here in the months ahead talking about how things are affected and what we're going to have to look at as far as making adjustments. But I know without the leadership of Carol and Angie and Mark, we wouldn't have gotten to where we are with the budget. So I certainly want to thank them. I also want to thank, I think she's back there. I saw her a while ago, Jennifer and Josh, and those that have been involved with getting this room ready for tonight. As we continue to talk about strange times, it's the first time in my career I've ever sat in a room with painter's tape, marking off sections of seats and whatnot. But we're going to try to do everything we can to be ready for the public, because that's why we're here, is to serve the public. And guidelines went out to the department directors today. They'll be going out to employees tomorrow about reopening our facilities to the public next Monday. I feel very confident that that will go well. Our employees have spent a lot of time, our general services folks, between plexiglass and stickers and posters. It's going to look like a different building in some respects come Monday, but we're doing that to keep everybody safe. That includes our citizens and it includes our employees. One bit of really good news. I know the board was very thoughtful in approving a 90-day extension for payment of real estate taxes. The taxes were still due on June 5th, but you waived the penalty and interest for 90 days. Well, as of June 5th, we collected 84.4% of the taxes that were due on June 5th. So I know the folks that needed that opportunity to have that time appreciate it, but I also just want to thank the folks that were able to pay on time to pay. That was $30,764,000. One of our concerns as a staff was what happens if everybody waits 90 days to pay, but they didn't do that. That allows us to be in a good position cash flow wise to finish the year. So certainly appreciate our citizens and our businesses that took care of that. The last thing I want to mention, and I'm going to read this, I'm also going to email it to everyone, relates to the CARES Act funding. I know several of you have had questions about the CARES Act and how that's working, how that's going to work moving forward. And I want to thank Angie for this work, but the federal CARES funding was distributed to states based on Census Bureau population estimates. The Commonwealth allocated funds to cities and counties, excluding Fairfax County, which received a direct federal allocation based on the same population estimates. Virginia counties are required to allocate a portion of their funding to the towns within their county. Montgomery County received its allocation of $8,596,799 on June 2nd. We actually received those funds. The two town managers and I talked about what made the most sense in terms of trying to determine how to allocate those funding, how to allocate that funding among the localities. And it made the most sense to us to have our finance directors who work with the budgets and all the information related to finances to put their heads together and come up with a solution. So the finance directors for the county and the two towns met several times to discuss the appropriate allocation of CARES funding between the entities. The group recommended that Montgomery County retain 25% of the funding off the top for the task force and/or future needs. So we've reserved about $2,149,000 just for the task force and activities related to that activity. Because the county is responsible for school funding while the towns are not, the group decided a more equitable allocation would be achieved by averaging several population estimates in addition to those of the census. The group recommends the remaining 75% of the CARES funding be allocated based on an average of the U.S. Census Bureau population estimates, population reported in the June 2019 Virginia Comparative Cost Report, and school-age population. So at the end of the day, for the 100% of the funds, 25% went to the task force, 38%, or approximately $2,450,000, is being retained by Montgomery County. $2,386,000, or 37%, is allocated to the town of Blacksburg, and $1,612,000, or 25%, is allocated to the town of Christiansburg. Each jurisdiction will determine the best eligible use for their portion of the funds. It's important to note that eligible uses are restricted by federal regulations. Unused funds as of December 30th and funds expended for ineligible uses must be returned to the state. Another thing that's important to note is a certification of receipt has to be signed off by each town before those funds are dispersed to the towns, because the county is the responsible party and we have to have the town certify to us, because we have to certify up the line that those funds will be used in the proper manner. I want to thank Marty. Marty spent a considerable amount of time discussing with staff the current guidance regarding the eligible uses of the funds. There's been a lot of things out there with communities that are talking about using this money for this particular project, that particular project. I want to be very, very cautious in that we don't expend funds that we later determine we're not eligible, because we're on the hook for those funds if we've got till December 30th, so we're going to continue to work on that. Today, the task force has spent about $286,000 for testing, masks, building sanitation, and that's the county and the task force, shields at polling stations. So we still have a considerable amount of funds left to spend. I wanted to give you a report on that this evening just to let you know funds are here. We're continuing to review that. And I'm sure at upcoming meetings, we'll be talking to you about possible uses for those funds to put those back in the community to the best we can. But I can't emphasize enough. I've been doing a lot of reading, and some folks are really trying to get creative with the use of those funds, but I don't have a problem with creative. I do have a problem with us spending money on something and having to pay it back later. So, Mr. Chair, that's all I have this evening.
Well, I have to follow up with this. The certification you spoke of with the towns, that protects us from having to pay back anything that the federal government may reject on them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I thought you said. I just wanted to make that clear. So thank you.
Yeah, those funds are in our care, and we have to certify that if we give them to the towns, that the towns will do what I'm not worried that that's not going to be an issue, but they know, and we know we've got to go through that step.
Right. Thank you. All right. Now our board members, we're going to go ahead and start with Supervisor Biggs.
Okay, I have just 3 things. I want to follow up on what Craig was saying. I sent you all an email about this local government COVID-19 task force, and we had our first meeting today virtually, and it's made up of 12 members, 5 from VACO, 5 from VML, and the 2 executive directors from both organizations. So we have regional representation from across the state. And as you know, the idea is for this task force to work on issues that have come about to localities from the COVID-19 experience. And we are intending to work closely with the governor's office and different folks from his administration, and he's aware that we have the task force. So we decided to divide the concerns into 3 categories: immediate concerns, intermediate concerns, and long-term concerns. This is going to be an ongoing task force, and one of the things that came up, of course, in the immediate concerns was the CARES Act funding. And people were very frustrated that there's no real guidance out there about what to do. And so, as Craig said, some people are getting very creative. Like I know in Fairfax County, they use part of the money to help serve students with internet access. In Rockingham County, they bought 2 ambulances to serve, or they're going to buy 2 ambulances to serve nursing homes. And so all these ideas were being thrown out, but no one really knows the guidance part of it, is scary. So that's one of the immediate concerns that will be discussed. And we're following up with a conversation with the governor 3:00 on Wednesday. And then for intermediate concerns, of course, is the state budget and the General Assembly coming back. We want to protect localities as much as we can and keep our state funding as much as we can. And there's a real concern about localities having to spend, of course, money to help schools, because schools are going to need more money, with all these different, requirements about what's going to happen with schools. So that's really an important part of this, because evidently there's a separate group that's school board based, but we're the ones that have to help with the money. So there needs to be coordination there. Then for the long-term category, that would be working with the governor with his budget that would be released in December, because as you know, that's going to impact the next fiscal year. So that's where we got today. All the ideas are going to be summarized by Friday. So if I get a summary of those, I can share those with you. All right, so that's what we did today. The second thing is I want to thank Captain Brian Wright from the Sheriff's Department for his email concerning having questions about use of force. And I think it's very important for our citizens to know that our Sheriff's Office since 1999 has been accredited through the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services. And you don't have to do that. They wanted to do that. And so that's really important to know. And the other thing that's important to know is that our deputies have been trained. You'll hear the word CIT, that means crisis intervention training. And that was actually the person that really got involved with that came from our county and sort of got that going a while back. So I think it's real important for our public to know that the chokehold is not used. And I know that some of us have gotten, emails asking about that. So I want to thank the Sheriff's Department for sending that forward, which leads me to my next and last comment. It was so important, the work that has gone into this county for the last 10 years with our Dialogue on Race Committee. And I think because of that just the fact that when we had the event last Tuesday, in Blacksburg, we had everybody, law enforcement, our sheriff spoke, the 2 police chiefs from the 2 towns spoke, and they had the police chief there from Virginia Tech. That work, those 2 events a year, all of that work has really paid off in our community. And there was a good showing, and I was really glad. We had Craig there, and Sherry and Todd and Steve spoke, and the 2 mayors from the 2 towns spoke, and it was just a coming together. And as you've seen, and hopefully it will continue to be, all the demonstrations have been peaceful demonstrations so far in our county. And I attribute that to the work that has gone in over all these years to make our community such a special community, but a strong community. And to really, we're in this together, not just with COVID, but with whatever else is going on. And so I want to thank everyone that came to that, law enforcement for speaking, and it was a really good event. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Supervisor King.
I don't have no report, but I would like to thank everybody for all their hard work during this time, especially the staff and law enforcement and first responders. As a citizen of Montgomery County, I want to personally thank you. And on a side note, I think the staff is going to have a, what would you call it, update on the
Date on the elder care leave.
elderly care leave. Since we, when Supervisor Gable was here, we done the parental leave. So I'd like to see this come in. So if y'all would think about that for the next couple of weeks, and maybe we'll have a presentation in the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Blevins.
Just to echo along with Supervisor Biggs, that we are so proud to have a sheriff's department and the town of Christiansburg and Blacksburg, and also the Virginia Tech Police Department, that are so invested and engaged in our citizens, and that we're all in this together. I know so many of the outreaches that the sheriff's office does that people may not be aware of, such as the effort, the Citizens Police Academy, the leadership program through the NRV leadership through the Chamber of Commerce and RSVP, and just so many other services that they offer to our community. So we're so proud and blessed to live in a community where we have law enforcement that are very engaged and invested, because this is their home. And we thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate you. And then I want to do a huge shout out. Again, it shouldn't surprise anybody that we have the best in Montgomery County. I want to give a shout out to the Montgomery County Public School System, the school board, and everyone involved with the graduation ceremonies a couple weeks ago. It is amazing. I believe it was probably one of the best in the country. Everybody came together, all the local law enforcement, emergency services, and it was just wonderful, well organized. I know it took a lot of time, and shouldn't surprise anybody that we have the best in Montgomery County, that we all come together to make everything very special, to recognize our seniors, especially during this pandemic. But it will be a very rememberable ceremony for them. So I appreciate everybody involved, and a well done job. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Shepherd.
I had a follow-up question for Mr. Meadows. You said that the 84.4% of real estate taxes have been paid. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you know how that compares to last year or previous years?
I do
At this
not,
time?
I do not, but I can get that
I'd
and
just be
email it to
curious.
you in a day or so. Yes.
Yeah. Another note to reiterate what Ms. Biggs said. Appreciate Captain Wright sending this email out with all this information. I went through the academy 20 years ago, and this was true then. And not only is Montgomery County accredited nationally, so is Blacksburg and Christiansburg and Virginia Tech. And for people that don't know exactly what that means that they are audited, I believe it's every 2 years or 3 years, by other agencies across the country, come in and go through all their records, their reports, to ensure that all the training, all the incidents that happen are being handled even across the board, nationwide. So if you're nationally accredited, that's kind of what that means. And if you're not, you won't hold that accreditation very long. And I appreciate him for putting that email out. Just says it to the T. That's all I have.
Thank you. Supervisor DeMotts.
I will echo and kind of co-sign what everybody else has said. I think that we are very blessed as a community to have really great law enforcement agencies, and also to have really great relationships between those law enforcement agencies. I think that's a real aspect of our strength, is that we value communication and dialogue across multiple agencies. So nobody is feeling turfy. Instead, they're saying, how can we work together? And I think that that's a huge benefit to everybody that chooses to live, play, do business in Montgomery County, in our towns, or with our universities. So I definitely recognize and am very thankful for how blessed we are to have such great law enforcement partners out there working for the protection and safety of all of us. I also wanted to just add two things, and I can't believe, Mary, you did not say something about the regional meeting for VACO that's coming up on June the 25th.
Yeah, I sent an email to everyone.
She did send an email, but I just want to encourage everybody to consider attending that Region 10 and 11 virtual meeting that's hosted by the Virginia Association of Counties. We're in Region 10, and we're in there with Floyd, Patrick County, Henry County. We've got a whole lot of counties in our region, and then immediately adjacent is Roanoke, Bedford, Botetourt, Craig, and Giles in Region 11. At that virtual meeting, they will have our local legislators speak, but there's also an opportunity for each county to bring forth some issues that they might be having or legislative issues that they might be facing. I know that'll be especially interesting to hear from others and how they're dealing with the pandemic. So definitely would be good information. They're also going to have a guest speaker as part of the virtual meeting to speak on broadband initiatives. So that should be some good information. That's Thursday, June 25th from 1 to 3 p.m. And then I wanted to do a little commercial again for the town halls that are being hosted. The final town hall of the series will be hosted this Wednesday, June the 10th from 6 to 7. Those are live on YouTube, and of course they can be found on the county's YouTube channel if you can't watch it live. But the final in the 6-part series is education, colleges, and universities. So New River Community College, Radford University, and Virginia Tech will all be present. And I think it goes without saying their decisions and how they bring students back impacts the entire community. So that is definitely going to be very relevant and timely information. Those have been just a wonderfully informative series that, again, circling all the way back to the beginning of my comments, showcases how everybody in this community makes it a priority to communicate with each other. And it really, really, especially in light of a global pandemic, really makes me feel very blessed to have chosen to move here to make Montgomery County my home. I think we're just very blessed to have so many good people working on behalf of not just our county, but the whole region. So do catch that final in the town hall series. It should be very interesting.
Thank you. Vice Chair Bone.
I love the graduation also. Great job, Montgomery County Public Schools. Loved watching Blacksburg High School, Eastern Montgomery, and so on. Outstanding. Thank you, Supervisor Biggs, for your efforts on that board. It's very important that we are at the table and represent Montgomery County in this region. So that's fantastic. Thank you for stepping up. I think that this county has been outstanding, not just with the task force, but sort of some of the things that you were saying, Mr. Meadows, about our fiscal management through this pandemic, but also our response is a testament to the fiscal management that we've had for years. The response that we were able to make with the task force so immediately at the beginning is just, I've said it before, but I'd like to say it again, just an outstanding testament to the fiscal management up until this point and then moving forward, and all of our emergency services, personnel, first responders, sheriff's department, and so on. Thank you very much for all of your service, especially during this time, in the schools too. And then I also want to thank, and echo a lot of what's been said about our law enforcement. I think the April 16th event probably had a lot to do with how we came together and have grown together over the years. But I'm not one to say what it was like before April 16th. But That's kind of my sense. But thank you to all the law enforcement for everything that you do. What I don't want to leave out is the fact that that so many in our community are asking or supporting Black Lives Matter, All People Matter. I don't know what all the ways to say about that, but we all have people of color as friends, and in no way do I want to discount what our law enforcement is doing, because they're doing a fantastic job. But our people of color do still struggle with challenges in our county. And the Dialogue on Race has done a fantastic job to get a lot of those tough discussions out on the table. But we still have a long way to go as far as what I understand from my friends. And I'm just glad that we're part of a community that's willing to talk about them and continue to try to make progress. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm kind of like everybody else. We're kind of all looking at the same issues, and we're grateful for a lot of the things that we have here in our county. I wanted to start off, though, first by thanking Jennifer and Josh and all the other folks in administration that have been just fantastic about setting up these meetings. It seems like you get everything straight, and then we throw you another curveball, and you grab it and you go with it and you make adjustments. And it's really great that all of us are able to attend tonight. And I think we got a pretty good system down, and I think it's going to work for us for a while until the sun comes out and everything is back to normal, whatever that is going to be. But thank you all very much. I know it's been a lot of work, and I know we've asked you to do a lot. And I wanted to, of course, being a retired police officer, I got to give a shout out to our sheriff's office. I think both our towns do a good job too, but the professionalism that's demonstrated by our sheriff's office is just outstanding. And I can say that because I've worked with them and I've worked for them. So I know what they do and I know what they go through. A lot of times people, they see something horrific. There's always a camera out there to catch a police officer when he makes a mistake. Of course, I'm not talking about the one that resulted in a death in Minneapolis. That's way over the line. But I would always ask people to walk a mile in a police officer's shoes and see what they deal with. And it's really wonderful to talk about crisis intervention and how to handle people with mental disorders. And again, I'm speaking from experience with the state police. They give all that training also. But sometimes it comes right down to it. You got to protect life. And that also happens. So, people need to remember that. And one of the things I like about our sheriff's office is I think they keep a pulse on that. If they have a deputy that maybe strays, they reel them back in, they help them out. And if it's somebody that is not suited for police work, they're gone. And that's important because not everybody can do that job. It's not easy at all. And I do appreciate Captain Wright putting out that information on use of force. It was very, very timely. I think that'll answer a lot of questions. As Supervisor Biggs stated, we've all been getting emails from citizens that are curious about it. And I have to agree with Supervisor Shepard. I went through basic school, police academy in 1982. Chokeholds weren't permitted back then. So what a police officer does halfway across the country doesn't mean that's what we're doing here in Virginia, and it doesn't mean that's what we're doing here in Montgomery County. So I want citizens to rest assured that we keep an eye on those things and we take care of that. So I also wanted to, before I leave, thank Michael Geary and the task force for all they're doing. Obviously, they're stepping up things. I see them going over to Giles and other places and just hitting the whole New River Valley, and that's wonderful. The more people we can get tested, the better off we're going to be, and the better understanding we'll have of where this disease is going and how we're going to get around it. So hats off to them too. And with that said, that's all I have. And so this meeting is now adjourned.